Okay, hello. I'm Shehzil. I'm an artist and designer, and I'm going to sit because artists are weird and we can do this. And I like coming after him because he spoke of vulnerabilities and being yourself, and I am really shitty at public speaking, so here is me being vulnerable. Please be nice. So essentially what I'm going to talk about is that the theme of this conference was unanswered questions, and what I do as an artist is I try to answer these questions through visuals. And the whole point of this started from me asking questions like, who am I? What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be Muslim? What does it mean to be of this skin color and to be born in this part of the world? Because these are parts of our identity that are pretty static. You can't change this. I'm not going to be born again tomorrow or be born differently. So I hope that my art basically tries to answer those questions for me. And as I have found, it turns out a lot of people feel a similar way. And this is how I've answered these questions for myself through others. And my PowerPoint is refusing to work because life is difficult. Do we have designers and artists here? Yes? Okay, cool. I hope it won't be boring for those who don't like art. So yeah, the first question I ask is, who are we as a people? And that's not an easy question to answer, especially if you travel and you have to explain Pakistan to anybody else because you're like, no, we're this, but no, not that, but not that guy, and it becomes a real pain. And I find that we can define ourselves basically through the stories we end up telling. Any culture is known for the stories they tell. There's some stories that we really see and we identify quite easily with us. This is a book I drew on Pakistan when I was in America and nobody knew what Pakistan was. So I was like, okay, let me take you through step by step. And I turned out drawing things that were the most familiar textbook definitions of what it meant to be from Pakistan. So the story started from there and ended with drones, and it was a room full of Americans, and I think I made a lot of people uncomfortable, which is what I love doing, so it worked out quite well. I came back and I was so frustrated. My parents watch the news every night, so it's always like dhanana, 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 dhanana. So the art started to reflect that, and I think I was drawing very cynically about how I was experiencing Pakistan once I was back, and even the humor was like, like, this is so stupid, what is Imran Khan saying? So the art started to reflect that, and then I drew a year or two after this, and I was like, am I a miserable person, or is this place miserable, and I really need to snap out of this. And I think a lot of us need to do that, because if you're here and you haven't moved around or you haven't questioned who you are, it becomes very easy to become cynical. I teach at a university, and I often find people younger than me are way more jaded, which surprises me, because I'm like, you're so young, why so sad? So I was walking in Anarkali and I ended up drawing this. And this was an animation that essentially from this image turns to this one over the course of 2 minutes as the viewers are walking past. This was basically my own reminder to myself of, are we seeing the magic that is in our cities as we walk past it? And are we taking ownership of things like, you know, what the Sufis said, or apart from the Mughal Empire, like the women warriors that existed in this place, or the Sikhs, or the Hindu gods. Like, I had never drawn a Hindu god before, so this was quite fun for me to be like, yes, this is also part of the same tapestry of where I'm from. And so when you get out of your own context and you're talking to people from other parts of the world, I wonder, are we telling our own story? Or if the story of violence and terrorism is all that you hear about Pakistan, have we given that power to somebody else to write that story for you? And I think to a large part we have. And here is a blank screen for some reason, but I think it's a video. So this is a video that I made in grad school, because my final project was it was called I Am Pakistan. And what I did was collect stories from all over of people who work in volunteering organizations. I put that story together, and you could click and essentially become a volunteer for that organization yourself. But this video was essentially supposed to kind of get you intrigued enough about the country in order to ask and want to help. So if you go back, could you help me play that video, please?
There is no video on the slides for now.
Okay, moving on. we will ignore this because this is another part of our identity of just making things happen. The next part is, are you the hero of your own story? Which links straight back to, are you the one telling your story? If yes, are we putting ourselves in the center of that? I think even when we're in school, we're usually writing about John did this and Anne went to the market and ate some strawberries. And I was wondering, like, how many of us have met Johns and Annes? Not much, I would assume. And so you need to put yourself in the forefront of whether you're drawing or you're writing. Make it local, make it according to your own context. And so this is what I do. This was a commercial illustration I made for a company, but I pretty much kind of subliminally put my own political messages into the artwork. This was made when I was feeling that Islamophobia was on the rise. And I'm sad that that's even a term now that we so normally talk about, being phobic of Islam. And so I drew this girl. She's wearing a T-shirt that has war, what is it good for? And you should say absolutely nothing. And she's wearing a Mughal har, and her watch has Mickey Mouse on it, and she's standing in front of this building that has Islamic architecture. This is a wall I saw in Lahore. And this was what I was trying to say, which is that we have so many common human experiences that there is no point in trying to separate one from the other in this day and age of the internet and so much shared culture between us. So what I do now is that I often meld Western and Eastern things that I grew up with, and I put them out there, usually on the internet. This wasn't made for any purpose other than I was feeling quite annoyed and powerless. My mom was asking me to look at a bunch of rishtas, and I was like, I'm going to draw Wonder Woman instead. And I think this is how you take charge of your narrative, where you're like, okay, I don't see a strong brown woman who's by herself. I'm just going to draw her for me. And I think this helps me channel whatever frustrations I have, and as it turns out, it's appreciated by others. So thank you for not making me feel alone. We heard Amber talk from Batari later. This was the album art I did for that album that the Sibi song came from and Abid came. My idea behind this was also that we need to celebrate all the amazing stuff that we already have. Tabir, the album, was supposed to be people that otherwise aren't seen in mainstream media and giving them a hope that if you have talent, you can make it. This isn't just the American dream. This is the reality in Pakistan now in this age of the internet and people sharing each other's work. So even the artwork for me was like the face is fragmented because it's different slices of Pakistani faces that I looked from different provinces. And I want to say this is all of us. This is a tapestry of human life that you can see if you just look around yourself. And this is another album I did. So I look at past influences and meld them with future influences to kind of make this a new visual language that we as modern Pakistanis can also feel ownership for and be like, yeah, this is very familiar, but oh, it's a gig poster. So in the same way, I think identity is complex. I think my nani was offended at this, but my sister loved it. And that's what I mean to say, that don't fix yourself in one kind of box that you're thinking this is Eastern, this is Western, this is Pakistan, this isn't. I've spent the last couple of years kind of going around Pakistan trying to find inspiration. I drew this when I spent a month in Hunza, and I was amazed at the gender equality and the women I found there, the masons and woodworkers, and I was like, I didn't even know this society existed. So this artwork is coming straight from the source, I would say. Like, this is what I was doing, this is what I saw. I picked apricots, I thought these women were amazing. This was when I went to Multan and I went to all the shrines, and I was like, yeah, like, these people are accepting a lot of like misconceptions I had about going to shrines or looking like a, burger kid was fine, like nobody cared. And so these images that I've shown you are more like being very proud of where you come from, but there's also the other side of things, which is you have to also accept your struggles. I think essentially what I want to do is be honest in who I am and who we are. And you need to understand that that's fine. Like, you need to call out your struggle because that's how you will overcome it. You're not going to do it if you brush it aside or pretend it doesn't exist. So this is a series I made on women in public spaces, which was I wanted to go for a walk, and my mom said, that's a stupid idea. It's not safe. You're not wearing the right kind of clothes. So I just, again, channeled my frustration in this. and ended up drawing a series in which this is how I feel when I step out. And I feel like this is not fair. And I think this is where vulnerability comes in, which is whatever I was feeling at that time, I just wrote on this girl's clothes, and it just becomes like you're making something that's invisible visible now, so you can actually have a dialogue on this. And I think it would have been harder for me to just stand up and talk about, oh, you know, I went for a walk and it was so hard. People are going to roll your eyes at you. But I think art kind of helps to overcome that even if you don't want to hear my story, here's an image that will probably resonate with a bunch of people and they can have a collective conversation. And for me, this is catharsis. I've changed how I approach public spaces now. I think I have become much more fearless just through this dialogue that I've had. So I thank the people who let me have it. And this is what I mean by tell your story and it'll become something bigger than yourself. I'm briefly just going to talk about the series I'm working on currently, which is Brown is Beautiful. And this is on perceptions of beauty. I'm dark. Most of us are shades of cappuccino to mocha. That's fine. I don't know why we think that's a bad thing. I want to burn Fair and Lovely's factories. That's fine. I put that anger into my art and just started writing stories about it, about how I grew up. I had a lot of fair-skinned Kashmiri friends. They always thought they were better. It's okay. But I wouldn't want our daughters and our younger sisters and my friends to still feel this way, that you need to hold yourself back or you need to feel inferior to somebody over things that you can't change and honestly should not matter. So this is something I drew, I think, a week ago, and this was shared probably more than any image of mine. I think so far it's been seen by over 130,000 people. And it was such a simple thing. It took me by surprise because I didn't put my story out there. This is a story about fairness screams and growing up with these insecurities that are kind of like thrown on you. I'm fine with this. I'm quite pleased with myself, actually. But I would want that my story, if it resonates with somebody else, tell it. It's fine. Like, own your scars, own the problems you've had. That's the only way you will become something that rises above it. And I think that we are at a turning point in this country because with the rise of violence and conversations becoming harder, how are we going to tell this story? And I don't have answers, but I drew this when suddenly, there were bomb blasts going across the country again. We had just been talking about Lahore being relatively safe and how I was enjoying going to the park again. The very next day, it's the same situation had turned bad, and I didn't know what to do about it. So I made this series, and it's called It's Okay, It's Not Okay, because I was rushing to get my sister from her workplace because another bomb scare had happened. And in the meanwhile, I was texting my German friend who was asking, is everything all right? And I was like, yes, it is. But on the other hand, I decided it's not okay. This is not normal. Why am I rushing? Why are we feeling our mortality behind us when we are doing normal things like going shopping or picking our kids up from school? And this is not something that we need to have an answer for because we're living through it. We need to cut ourselves some slack. This is not an easy time. This is not something that you can conclude in an easy 10-minute conversation in a drawing room about where are we going. But I would like to say, if this is the trajectory of our country, what are we going to do on the other hand of it? Like, how are we going to switch the narrative so it's not just terrible things happening and us going, yeah, that's the way it is. It's not how it is. And how are we going to combat that? This is a wall I painted with my friends and family last Easter when there was a suicide bombing there and over 70 people were killed. And I think with something like this is more like a public catharsis where you come together and you draw. This wall doesn't exist anymore. It says Intaha Pasandi Ab Nahi, which is extremism no more. It doesn't exist. It was, this wall came down. But I'm so glad that we took pictures of it and it was shared and articles were written about it, because the number of people who shared that kind of becomes a way for me to judge that this is a sentiment that's accepted and actually popular here. We may not have a survey that tells us this, but this is an idea that Pakistanis believe in. And so my question now is for all of you, that we're going to change how Pakistan is spoken about internally and externally through us. We are active agents in this, and we are in this together. You telling your story affects me. My telling this story affects you. And this brings me to this very nice proverb that my African friend, he's Kenyan, he won't like me saying African, says, and that is, I am because you are, which means we are all in this together. This is not a vacuum that we live in. So please tell your story, make it local, be proudly brown, and call out our mistakes so we can be a better Pakistan tomorrow. Thank you.